Hi, I've been recently playing and enjoying this new trading card game called Disney's Lorcana. The game isn't actually out yet. It comes out on August 18th, 2023. And so you might be thinking to yourself, but wait, if the game isn't out yet, how are you playing the game? Well, that's what this video is about. It's about how you can get your hands on some cards so you can try the game out yourself. And so what I've done is I've actually downloaded, printed, cut, and sleeved these cards called proxy cards, which are not the actual cards developed by the game company, but they're cards that you're going to actually make yourself. A couple notes about proxy cards is that a trading card game is intended to be a game that you buy lots of cards, you buy many cards and sets over time, and it's a pretty big investment. So you might want to create proxy cards early on to be an early advocate for the game, to learn the rules and see if it's something you want to invest in, and also just in case you can't get your hands on the cards right away, you can supplement cards that you don't have with proxy cards once the game has released. There are a couple rules when it comes to creating proxy cards that you should be aware of. First is that you would never sell or trade proxy cards. They're just for you. Obviously this is a copyrighted, trademarked IP, and the game developers spent a lot of time and energy and money to make this game, so you want to support the game developers by buying their product when it's released. Second is that if you're playing with other players that have cards, you need to let them know that you're playing with proxy cards and make sure they're okay that you're playing with them in that game. And then third, when it comes to a tournament, often tournaments don't allow proxy cards. Some of them do, but most of them don't. So be aware that you actually have to get the actual cards to play in the tournaments when the time comes. In this video, I want to cover four topics. The first is how to download the cards. The second is going to be, we're going to talk about different printing options. I am going to talk about two different printing options. It really depends on where you're printing it, how are you printing it, what size paper. So I'll give you two different options, and then you can kind of change it and adjust it based on what kind of hardware you have available to you. Third, I'll talk about cutting. These cards are standard card size, and then these sleeves are standard sleeve size, which is going to be 2.5 by 3.5 inches. And so I'll show you a good way to do that. And then lastly, we'll talk about sleeves and sleeving cards. If you're not familiar with sleeves, we'll go into some depth about why you'd want to do this. And I'm definitely a huge advocate of using sleeves. And when you're making proxies, I think sleeves are a must. We're not going to talk about the rules much in this video. I might have another video a different day that'll talk about the rules. All the rules are posted on Lorcana's website, so you can go there to learn them. And so let's just focus primarily on making proxies today. To get image files of these cards onto your local computer, you're going to want to go to a website called lorcania.com. And what the folks on this website have done is they've done a really good job keeping up to date with all the news of Lorcana and any information of cards that have been revealed so far, and they have gone through and recreated the cards. So you go to cards, card library, and you can see all the cards that they've recreated. They also, I just want to call out right away that they've added this little watermark here that says recreated by Lorcania, which I think is a really nice touch. So all of these cards are in a format that they decided would be the best format for printing. Because they're taking information from wherever they can get it, whether it's an image or a video, or it could be a website, they've created it in a consistent format so all the gameplay reads and prints really, really well. And then they've taken the images that they can get and put them underneath here at the top. So you will see that the image quality is quite different depending on where they got the image, but the print quality of these and the gameplay, it just works really well. They also take whatever information they can get, and they don't always have complete information. So you'll notice that these top cards here don't have lore amounts, they don't have the rarity yet, they don't have the right card number, and that's just because they don't have it. They didn't have it in whatever information they used to recreate these cards. But I have noticed that they're very, very good about updating the information as soon as it comes out, and this card will get swapped out with the correct information when they have it. When I print these cards, I like to sort by A to Z. And the reason I do A to Z is because when you scroll down, you will see that every once in a while there are duplicate cards. So Cruella de Vil here, for instance, there's 2 copies of it. And the reason for that is because one of them has the rarity that you'd get from a booster box, and the other has the promo rarity on it. So when you print it, you can pick either or you can do both. There's another way that you could filter those out, which is you could go to sets and just do the first chapter. So that would filter out the promo cards. But I personally like to just leave them all and just pick in alphabetical order which ones I want to take. Now to get these as files on your computer, you're just going to right click and do save image as. I've created a folder on my desktop called desktop Lorcana Proxies. I'm just going to save it. The file format is WebP. That's not necessarily a super useful format for the different kinds of programs that we're going to use to print these, but I'll show you how to convert these to PNGs, which are a pretty universal format. So I'm just going to save a couple of these real quick for demonstration purposes. And then we will switch over to the folder where these were saved to. And for each of these files, I'm going to just open them with MS Paint. And with MS Paint, it's very easy to save these to PNG files. You just go Save As, PNG picture, and I'm going to save it to the same location now as a PNG. Complaints about transparency, just say OK. And now you'll see that there's those 2 cards right here in this folder. And just make sure you get all of the WebP files and that they all have a PNG version of them. And this is a pretty tedious process. I wish there was a faster way to do it, but also it's just kind of a one and done thing. I'm going to stop the recording here for a second and come back to you once I've gotten all the cards in WebP and PNG formats. So I will be back in just a second. All right, so I finished downloading all the WebP files and I converted them to PNG files as well. And I took all the PNG files and I put them in this folder called 2.5 by 3.5, which represents the number of inches of the dimensions of a standard card. Now there's no paper that I know of that you can print to that's 2.5 by 3.5, so we want to convert these to standard paper sizes. The paper sizes that I'm working with are actually going to be 4 by 6, which is a photo paper size, and also 8.5 by 11, which is going to be your standard letter size. And I'm going to show you 2 different ways to create these files. So the first I'm going to show you is how to do the 4 by 6. To create the 4 by 6 images, we're going to use a program called Inkscape, which is kind of like Adobe Illustrator. It's just free to you. I'll put links below on how to download this program. As soon as you open it, it's going to look like this, and you want to change the document size to match the size of the paper you're going to print to. So we're doing 4 by 6. We're going to change document properties, switch it to inches, and just manually type in here. Width is going to be 6, height is going to be 4, and there we go. And then we want to make sure that we're working in inches up here when we're going to be manually placing in the various dimensions of the different things on the screen. We're going to want to then next pull in the cards. So what I would actually do is don't pick all of them, that'd be way too many, but you can pick a batch. If you pick too many, the program gets kind of sluggish. But if we drag and drop them into Inkscape like this, and then just click enter through all the default settings, it's overlaying all the cards on top of each other. And one thing I also want to call out is it's not always great about doing a perfect job overlaying them. So like this one right here ended up being not quite where it needs to be. So you can drag and drop it and it will snap it over the top like that. So really what's happening here is there's just a layer of cards. I can actually drag and drop them like this. So you can just see they're kind of all overlapped on top of each other. And the program can be a little bit less responsive when you have this many images, but you can just do less cards if you're having a hard time with responsiveness. But what you're going to want to do next is you're going to copy all, you want to select all of these cards like this, and we're going to want to change their size. Again, make sure it's in inches to be the standard card size, which is 2.5 wide and 3.5 high. And then we're going to just center it on the document so it could be right there in the middle. And so for the x coordinate, I believe that needs to be 0.5. And it's what it's doing is it's aligning the top left corner of these. And the y coordinate should be 0.025. Oh, not 0, I got that wrong, 0.25. And so that's basically, again, the top left corner is right here. And then we're going to take all these again, I have them all selected, and we're going to copy them and paste them. So I did Control-C, Control-V. And we are going to set this coordinate. The y should be the same because it's the top, so 0.25. And then the x coordinate should be the size of the card, which is 2.5, plus the half that we put here to center it, which is 3. And so now we have these nice and centered on the 4x6 paper size. And then one thing I like to do as well is I like to add cut lines, and I'll show you how to do that real quick. It just makes it a lot easier when you're going through to cut. And so to do this like really quickly, it should snap here, and you'll click there, and then you want it to snap at the top. It's not going to be a perfect line yet, and then push enter when you're done. You can see it's kind of jagged, and I'll come back and fix that in a second. But you're going to basically want to do that to all the different places that you want to cut line. So one on the top, one on the bottom, push enter when you're done, do that over here. One at the top, on the side here, and then one on the side here. And then do this for all the corners. But to get these to line up straight so they're not crooked anymore, you're going to grab this little tool right here. And all you need to do, because that one's already snapped between the cards, you just need to select this top one here and make sure it's rounded. So this needs to be rounded to 3, like that, to get a perfect line. And then you can do the same thing for the bottom here. Get that bottom one, make sure this x coordinate is rounded to 3. You can do the same thing for the x coordinate down here, but it's going to be 5.5 this time. The numbers are already pretty close. And then this one right here, you're going to want to change the y coordinate to be rounded to 3.75. And you'll just do that all the way around. I'm going to cut the video and do these other two real quick, and then I'll come back to you and show you how to actually save this as a file to print. Okay, I'm back and I have all the cut lines filled in here. It doesn't hurt to go back and double check the dimensions. I even went back and I double checked to make sure the points that were snapped on the card snapped correctly, and they were. But because we're going to reuse these cut lines for all the different cards, it's good to double check the dimensions. Also, if yours ended up to be wider than these, you can go and change the width, and I'm actually going to make these a little bit smaller anyway. So if you hold shift and select all of the cut lines, you should be able to go to Object, Fill and Stroke. You can pick the tab here that says Stroke Style, change that to inches, and I'm going to just make it half of what it was. You can set this to whatever you want. But these are only supposed to be hints for cutting, so if they're too big, they're really not that helpful. And so making them a little bit smaller might just be easier to cut with. And with that said, I think this is ready to export. There's one thing for exporting that I think is helpful to do, which is go back to your 2.5 by 3.5 folder and copy all of these images, because we want to reuse the image names. It's just going to make it so we don't have to type out the image name every single time. And so I'm going to paste them all into the 4x6 folder. And this is what we're going to export. We're going to replace all these images with the 4x6 images that have the side-by-side cards. So going back to Inkscape, we'll click File, Export, and it brings us Export tab. Make sure in here to pick either page or document. We've already set up the document dimensions, so I'm going to pick Document to just get the bounds of what we're working with. And then it's also very important that you change this DPI to 300, which is the standard printing DPI. If you leave that at 72, you're going to end up with a blurry image and not be very happy. Now that we have this set up ready to export, we're going to click this little icon down here, this folder icon, to pick the file name we want to export to, and navigate to the 4x6 folder. And we're doing Mickey, so we can select Mickey, and you can see that it just replaced the file name there. And we're going to save it and replace it. And now if we go back to our folder explorer, you could see the side-by-side Mickey image that is on a 4x6 dimension. And we can now, just because we layered these cards on top of each other, we can just delete Mickey on each stack. Now we have Maximus, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to select Maximus here to export to, and click Save once we have the right file selected, and replace it. And just keep on going through all these cards and doing the same thing until you've gotten through the entire stack. Once you're done getting through all these cards, you can just do the same process all over again. And because these will all be deleted, you can just reuse the cut lines that you have. So I'm going to cut away from the video now and come back and show you how to do 8.5 by 11. Now for the 8.5 by 11 prints, I'm going to show you a different process. It's actually a lot faster and easier, but it only works for 8.5 by 11. I chose to go with the 4x6 process that I had because I was shopping around for where can I get the cheapest prints, and I found that the 4x6 prints were significantly cheaper than 8.5 by 11 prints when I ordered online. But 8.5 by 11 might be really good for you if you're printing at home or maybe taking it to a FedEx. And so you just kind of have to shop around for what the paper costs are going to be, paper and print costs, and go with whatever works best for you. So for the 8.5 by 11, we're going to use this program called TCG Proxy Gen. I will put a link in the description below for where I downloaded this. And you'll open the app up and drag and drop the PNG files here that you want to print. So we already have our folder of 2 0.5 by 3.5 images. So we can just drag and drop that in there. And it's going to make a PDF with all of those cards in it. And this is just showing you real quick a preview of how it's going to lay out. You can add duplicates here if you want. So if I wanted to click these and add more Aladdins, I can click them. And if I wanted to remove them, I can right click them to remove them down to the count that I want. And you can do that for all the cards and lay it out however you want. Now, the first time I used this program, I printed at home on cardstock paper, and these prints turned out a little bit smaller than I think I would have wanted them to be. So if I were going to print more at home, I probably would tweak the border size a bit. You can make the border size smaller so that the cards are bigger, or you can make the border size bigger so the cards are smaller. And I think you're just going to have to tinker with that to see whatever works best for you. But once you have that where you want it to be set, then what you do is you click print and select the folder you want to put it in and give it a file name. And then let it do its job. It takes a little bit of time to lay out the PDF. And now it's done. So I can go ahead and open up that PDF in Adobe and see how it looks. And it looks like this. So you can kind of see how the cards are going to lay out. And then you can just print it straight from that. So pretty straightforward process, and definitely the easier way to go if 8.5 by 11 is the format that you want. I want to show you real quick what our first set of proxy cards look like. They look like this. They're grayscale draft quality prints printed at home on cardstock, 8.5 by 11 paper. And we use the TCG Proxy Generator program to create these. We didn't even do a full set of cards. We just did 3 of each card instead of 4. And then we were playing with 45 card decks because the goal wasn't to necessarily play the game exactly as it was designed to be played. Instead, it was just to get a feel for the rules and decide if we want to spend more time and energy and effort into playing this game. And our answer was yes, we did. So we decided to, there's a couple things that happened. One is it motivated me to make this video. And also I decided to go out and order some prints from online, some color prints, so that we can make higher quality proxy cards and teach some friends and families how to play this game. These cards just aren't that enjoyable to play with. They're super low quality. They don't shuffle very well. It's not that much fun to shuffle them and replay games. We could probably sleeve them, but I think just once we get those higher quality prints in, I think we're going to have more fun playing the game and teaching people how to play the game, and that's really the goal. And then also because that I made this video, so hopefully it'll be helpful to some of you guys if you decide to make proxies as well. But this is a totally great, fine way to learn how to play the game, and I would recommend it if you're just trying to get your foot in the door like we are. Check this out. Our Lorcana proxy card prints just came in. 250 total. That'll be 500 cards. I have a lot of cutting to do. But looking at the quality of these, they turned out so good. This is so much better than the at-home prints I tried to do. The quality is really, really high. And if you look at the matte finish that I used instead of gloss, not too much reflection at all. I did take another TCG card and put it over the top to see how I did on size, and they did come in bigger than I expected. I kind of slide the card all the way over like this. You can see how much of an extra black border this is. It's not going to be a problem for playing with the proxy cards or using them. It's only going to be a problem when it comes to cutting them. It's going to be quite a bit of extra work for me because I'm not going to be able to use these predetermined cut lines. Instead, I'm going to have to measure it out and cut the borders in a little bit further. Otherwise, they won't fit in the sleeves. Very excited to play with these. So I've got a lot of cutting to do ahead of me. I'm going to get to it. All right, it's time to try cutting these. So I've got my cutting board and a pair of scissors here. Not sure if I'm going to need the scissors. I'm going to put those aside, but I've got them nearby if I need. And we're going to start by cutting Simba here. So I do need to cut them a little bit further in. And so I'm going to kind of have to eyeball this. And I want to make it so that I can be pretty fast and efficient at cutting these. So I'm going to start by lining this up here on the top. And when I'm looking at these cards, I think I'm going to want to actually cut a little bit more off the top than the bottom because the cards do have writing on the bottom. And I'm worried that if I cut too far up on the writing, it's going to look bad. And so that's why I think I'm going to start with cutting a decent amount off the top. I have this little line here that I'm gonna try to utilize so that when I cut these, I can cut them quickly. I think I can line it up pretty close to that, maybe a little bit further out. Kind of like this looks pretty good. So that may or may not be the right distance. We'll see when we cut around it. And actually, because the card height needs to be 3.5, I can do the bottom cut right now. And so there's this measurements here, so this should be really easy. This is gonna be 3.5 right here. Oops. Someone's getting snagged. There we go. Just being careful not to overcut. So looks like on the bottom there, you can still see the words and the Rarity logo pretty well. Okay, so now the middle cut, and I'm just gonna have to eyeball this. There's probably nothing I can really utilize on the board necessarily until I get the first couple cuts underway. It's possible I can use this 3-inch marker here. That might be okay to line it up right with that. Let's see. It's only gonna work for one side though when I do that. It looks a little bit too far. All right, let's just do it. Go with that one. And then the final cut on this is going to need to be 2.5 inches. So this should be really easy. So we can just line up with 2.5 right there on this line right here. So that's what I came up with right there. It looks pretty good, pretty well centered. I have a sleeve over here we could try it out on. It's a little snug, but not too bad. I actually think that's pretty good. Yeah, I think that's gonna work out really well. I'll probably get sleeves with a black back instead of green. But even then, I think this looks pretty dang good. I'm really excited about this. This is a matte sleeve. I don't know, I might want to get gloss sleeves. You definitely lose some color with the matte sleeve. But yeah, this looks great. Just doing a quick check on where I'm at. I cut about 26 cards in the last half hour. I think at this rate, it's going to take me about 9 more hours to get through all the cards. But I am getting faster. I'm getting quite a bit faster, so it's probably going to take less than 9 hours. It is a tedious task, but look at these results. I think it's going to be worth it in the end. So some time has passed since my last clip of me making the cards and cutting the cards. And since then, I've cut all the cards I want to cut. I've sleeved the cards I want to play with. I've been playing with friends and family and really just enjoying the game. But I want to circle back to talk a bit more about sleeves and why you would want to sleeve your proxy cards. And I think it just really polishes off that proxy experience and makes the game a lot more enjoyable. So let's talk about sleeves a bit more here real quick. The reason you want to sleeve the cards, there's a couple different reasons. And I think the primary one is that these cards are not all cut the same way. And so sleeves are going to make it a lot easier to shuffle, and I'll show you that in a second here. And because they're not all cut the same way, when you try to like do a bridge shuffle, what happens is your finger gets snagged on them and they just don't shuffle evenly. And then even if you are able to shuffle them evenly, the cards can be so flimsy that like it's just not it's just not the same as cards, and so the sleeves will make it easier to shuffle. Now you could shuffle the cards by just sort of doing this sort of like, I don't know what you want to call it, but you just kind of like move all your cards around and then put them back together, but that's really annoying and unreliable as well. So I think sleeves are the much better option, and it will just make playing the game over and over a lot more enjoyable. And you'll actually, like, it's kind of fun just to play with the sleeves and shuffle them if you've never experienced that before. So I highly recommend trying it out. Another reason is that depending on how you printed your proxies, so I ordered mine online, and they have this watermark, and that watermark has a little bit of information about what the card is. Some of them will even have like the word like that says Mickey in it. And so when I've got my deck here and my discard pile here, like I'm gonna see what the next card is. I can see the next card is Scar, which is not the way that the game is meant to be played. You want to definitely make sure the next card is secret from you. And so by putting the sleeves on there, it keeps that information secret. So I think in the previous clip, I had shown you this green sleeve, and I'd mentioned that I wanted to try having a black border instead of a green sleeve border. So I tried doing that, and I went out and got some black sleeves that have a black background and black border. And I like these sleeves a lot. I think they look really good. But one thing that I kind of realized after playing with these for a while is that because the cards have a black border and the sleeve has a black border, there's just not as much contrast as I think I would like. And so when I'm playing the game or if I'm videotaping it like this, it's hard to tell how many cards I have in my hand and where one card ends and the other one starts. And I mean, it's fine. These are great. There's nothing wrong with them. I just wanted to try something else. So I went out and bought these Dragon Shield white matte sleeves. These are like this is considered a high quality premium card sleeve. And what that looks like is it looks like this. And I think it looks really good. I think that border and that contrast between the black and white looks very, very good. I think it's cool on the backside as well. So when you have a couple of these cards in your hand, like this, you can really see where one starts and one ends, and I think it works out pretty well in the videotaping and when you're playing the game. So very, very, very happy with playing with these. When you're kind of comparing and contrasting the green sleeve with the white sleeve with the unsleeved one, another thing you can notice with these more premium sleeves, because this is considered like, this is just sort of a generic brand and these are higher quality, is I do think that the cards themselves are brighter. I don't know if you can see this very well in the video, but this definitely looks brighter and more full of color like this, while the color of this is a bit more muted because this is a matte sleeve. And the reality is that this matte sleeve is probably better for videotaping because there's not a lot of reflection, and these have a lot of reflection. So like depending on where my lights are and where my camera is, this actually could be worse for videotaping, but for playing, I definitely prefer these Dragon Shield sleeves. The only downside I'd say of the white ones is you can slightly see through the back. So if I was worried about those watermarks and with the print here, you can kind of see that. It's not enough that I can read it, and if it's a darker room, I can't read it at all. But if I'm looking up against the light, I can probably make what it says. When the game actually comes out and they all have the same background, that's not going to be a problem. It's just a bit of a problem for the proxies, so something to be aware of. I think I'm going to continue to play with them anyway for a little while. One way to get around that is you can actually take another TCG game, like you take like these Pokemon cards and put all of them behind the cards like this. So then you don't really see. I could see the Pokemon logoing a little bit, but that's not a big deal because it's the same in all of them, so I can't make out what this card is. It's nice to put the TCG cards behind these as well because they're firmer. But I think for the time being, since we're working with only proxy cards and because we're probably playing in more dark settings, we'll probably just play like this for a while and see how that goes. And I was going to show you shuffling as well. So one thing for people that are not familiar with sleeves is that these are really, really fun to shuffle. And the reason for that is because of the way that the cards sit in the sleeves, and the sleeves kind of have a beveled corner. You can do a mash shuffling really easily. And so really you just take the cards and mash them like this. I'm not sure how well it's showing up in the video, so I'll try to show this a little bit better. But they slide together very easily. And then when they're like this, you can see how all the cards just kind of come together. The cards are definitely thicker with the sleeves. There's a couple, I think because of the way the Proxy's printed, they're even thicker than if they were regular cards. And this is a 60 card deck right here. I can squeeze it in. That means there's quite a bit of air in there. And I think part of the reason that these are so thick is that the way that these cards printed is they're actually quite curved. And I think it's just part of the print process. And so I think what's happening is inside these sleeves, they're kind of tending to curve a little bit as well and probably making a little air pocket. So I think that's more specific to the proxies than the actual playing with these sleeves, but it's just something to be aware of. And as far as for what we've been playing 60 card decks. This is a steel and amber deck. We have an amethyst and sapphire deck, a sapphire and amber deck, and just trying a bunch of different combos. It's been really fun, really fun, really enjoyable. Love learning the rules, and like really enjoy teaching friends and family how to play. I'm really excited for the full game to come out to support this company. I think I'm gonna kind of close off this video here with the obligatory, like, if you like this content, you want to see more of it, please like and subscribe, comment below if you have any thoughts on it, on the content, and also just coming back to the thing I started with, if you're gonna make proxy cards, make sure that you are not ever going to trade or sell those, and that they're just for you and your experience. If you like the game, support the company and the devs that made it, and go out and buy the game when it comes out. And then of course, if you do end up taking these proxy cards with you to any sort of like tournament setting once the game has released, you need to make sure that the tournament supports proxy cards. And if you're playing against other players, you need to make sure to let them know that you're playing with proxy cards. I think that's all very important rule of making proxies. But with that said, I think this is a great time to print some proxies, to learn the game, to be an advocate for the game, and teach other people how to play it, so that when the game comes out, it's a success and it's fun for all people that jump in and want to play. So have fun out there, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.